Lay not up for yourselves treasures upon earth, where moth and rust doth corrupt, and where thieves break through and steal.
Padre Pio walked a path few dared to follow, one marked by pain, miracles, and unwavering faith.
We love St. Padre Pio. He's a good friend of God, and so I thought it was really kind of a life.
Bearing the stigmata for over 50 years, he became a living bridge between the earthly and the divine. Crowds gathered for his prayers, believers wept at his words, and countless lives were transformed by his presence. But as his earthly journey came to a close, something sacred happened.
When I saw it was when Padre Pio held baby Jesus during Christmas. The light, so this was picture taken without flesh, the light that came just beyond the statues.
In the stillness of his final moments, Padre Pio received a message directly from Jesus. What he heard would shake even the strongest believer to their core. The day heaven marked him. In 1918, an extraordinary event unfolded that would forever mark the life of Padre Pio. On one fateful morning, after celebrating Mass, he felt an overwhelming sense of stillness come over him. As the hours passed, a deep drowsiness overtook him, and in that moment, something miraculous occurred. A mysterious figure resembling one he had seen 5 years earlier, in 1913, appeared before him. This time, however, the figure's hands, feet, and side were visibly bleeding, mirroring the wounds of Christ. Fear surged within Padre Pio's heart, an indescribable terror that seemed to pull him to the brink of death. Yet in that terrifying moment, a surge of divine strength flooded his soul, keeping him from perishing. As the vision slowly faded, he was left in awe. To his astonishment, Padre Pio discovered that his own hands, feet, and side were bleeding as well. He had received the stigmata, the sacred wounds of Christ, bestowed upon him by the Lord. The stigmata, a profound sign of his spiritual connection to Jesus, marked Padre Pio as a man of exceptional faith. It was not just a symbol of his suffering, but also a divine confirmation of his ability to discern souls and serve as a guide for those in need of spiritual healing. People flocked to him, drawn by the visible wounds that made him a living testament to Christ's passion. Through this miraculous phenomenon, the Lord used Padre Pio to lead countless souls away from sin and toward the hope of resurrection. As Padre Pio neared the end of his earthly life in 1968, the visible stigmata, which had been a constant part of his identity for 50 years, began to fade. On September 20th, 1968, the wounds that had appeared so miraculously half a century earlier began to close. It was a bittersweet moment, a sign that his time on earth was nearing its end. By the time of his death, the stigmata had completely disappeared, yet they remained forever in the soul of this humble servant of God. But what hidden force guided Padre Pio from a humble village boy to a man marked by Christ himself? Keep watching, from humble beginnings to a life marked by grace. By September 20th, 1968, exactly 50 years after the miraculous appearance of the stigmata, Padre Pio's wounds had vanished, marking the end of a profound spiritual journey. Yet Padre Pio's extraordinary story began long before that fateful morning. Born Francesco Forgione on May 25, 1887, in the humble farming town of Pietrelcina in southern Italy, his path to sainthood was anything but ordinary. Raised in a poor family, life was simple and centered around the land. Yet even as a small boy, Francesco harbored dreams that soared far beyond the fields of his village. He often told his parents of his desire to become a monk, and his family, despite their modest means, shared his vision. They made countless sacrifices to ensure that their son received the proper education and guidance, even hiring a private tutor to help him prepare for his calling. At the age of 15, Francesco entered the Capuchin friars in Morcone, beginning his novitiate. His health was fragile, and he often suffered from illnesses and pain. Despite this, his determination to follow his vocation never wavered. Through faith, prayer, and immense perseverance, he completed his religious studies and was ordained as a priest in 1910 at just 23 years old. From that moment onward, Padre Pio's life became a tapestry of intense prayer, sacrifice, and spiritual battles. His letters to spiritual advisors speak of the immense physical suffering he endured, but they also reveal the invisible spiritual struggles he faced daily. His connection to the Eucharist and the Blessed Virgin Mary deepened, becoming the foundation of his life and his ministry. Padre Pio became widely known for his miraculous abilities, his power to read hearts, and his unwavering dedication to confessional work, where he spent hours guiding souls toward redemption. But even holiness has its shadows. In the 1920s, Padre Pio faced intense scrutiny from the church. Amid swirling accusations, he was placed under heavy restrictions and even barred from public ministry, yet he remained steadfast in his faith and calling. But what fueled Padre Pio's unwavering faith and his poignant farewell to Christendom? Stay tuned to discover the truth, the final Mass and a farewell heaven had planned. Rome finally softened its stance in 1933, allowing Padre Pio to once again serve the people who flocked to him for healing, confession, and hope. But even as restrictions lifted, Padre Pio's true mission never changed. He lived for the Mass, for prayer, and for the souls who came seeking God. 50 years after receiving the Stigmata, on the morning of September 20th, 1968, Padre Pio rose for what would become his final celebration of the Eucharist. It was an ordinary day by his standards, simple, prayerful, and humble. But for his followers, it was sacred. Thousands of spiritual children from across the globe had made their way to San Giovanni Rotondo, sensing the weight of the moment, even if they didn't fully understand why. The Mass began at 5 a.m., and the church quickly filled beyond capacity. Many stood outside in silence, braving the early morning chill just to be near. As Padre Pio had requested, there were no speeches, no celebrations, only prayer. Yet one beautiful exception filled the sanctuary. Hundreds of red roses placed around the altar and adorning the choir loft crucifix, the very crucifix before which he had received the Stigmata in 1918. Though weak and frail, he celebrated the Mass from a seated position, his face revealing every ounce of pain, devotion, and union with Christ. His eyes closed often, his lips trembled. At moments, tears welled in his eyes, and he gently wiped them away with a handkerchief. That Mass lasted just over 30 minutes. 2 days later, on September 23, 1968, Padre Pio took his final breath. His death came quietly, unexpectedly. In his hometown of Pietrelcina, the church bells tolled every half hour as news spread and hearts broke across the world. But what drove Padre Pio's unshakable mission until his final Mass, just days before his peaceful farewell? And the message he received from Jesus? Keep watching. Padre Pio's words of faith and fire. By the early hours of September 23, 1968, the world learned he had quietly passed. But what remained, perhaps even more powerful than his miracles or the mystery of the Stigmata, were the words he left behind. Words that still echo in the hearts of millions. Padre Pio's life was not just marked by physical suffering, but by a profound spiritual clarity. His faith was not merely professed, it was lived in every breath, every tear, and every Mass. In his letters and confessions, in whispers to penitents and reflections to his spiritual children, he spoke with the voice of one who walked closely with God. He taught that we must recognize and embrace the will of God, especially in the moments that hurt the most. In everything that happens, he once wrote, you must see God's hand, adore it, love it, even when it strikes. These were not hollow words. They came from a man who knew pain intimately, yet never wavered in trust. Padre Pio reminded his followers that even in sin, we are never alone. When we are in grace, God lives in us. When we are not, he waits for us outside, but our guardian angel never leaves our side. He spoke of angels not as abstract beings, but as loyal friends who walk beside us no matter how far we stray. To him, prayer was everything. The best weapon we have, he said, the key that opens the heart of God. But to truly pray, one must be humble. God speaks only to the humble, he taught, and he fills them with his gifts. Humility and purity, Padre Pio believed, were the wings that lift the soul to heaven. His view of earth was not romantic. It was a battlefield, a place of trial. Here we are tested, he often said. There, in paradise, we will wear the crown. He called life a temporary exile, and heaven our true homeland. Everything he said and did pointed upward, to Christ, to eternity, to a love that never fades. He once said the Mass was so sacred that even angels struggled to grasp its full meaning. Ask an angel what the Mass is, he wrote, and he will tell you. I understand what it is and why it's offered, but I do not understand its full value. For Padre Pio, the Mass wasn't just a ceremony. It was a direct participation in Christ's sacrifice. When he stood at the altar, he relived Calvary. When he wept during the Eucharist, he wept with Jesus. He saw Christ not just as Redeemer, but as the poorest of the poor, lying in a manger with nothing. He had nothing, Padre Pio said, so we would learn to give up everything. Jesus chose poverty, pain, and obscurity, so that we might learn humility, love the simple, and despise the vanities the world worships. Padre Pio's thoughts on the passion and resurrection were deeply moving. Why did Jesus suffer? To wash away our sins, he answered. Why did he rise in splendor? To show us the meaning of redemption. Just as Christ rose, so too must we, spiritually, by rising above sin and seeking grace. We must resolve never to die spiritually again, he said, never to go back. He was honest about human weakness. Our imperfections will follow us to the grave, he said. We cannot walk without touching the ground, but we must not lie there either. To him, spiritual growth was like a baby bird learning to fly. It's clumsy, slow, sometimes frustrating, but every flap of the wings matters. Don't try to fly before you have wings, he advised gently. Progress in holiness for him was patient and steady. He cautioned against obsessing over past sins that had already been confessed. Don't dwell on them, he insisted. Jesus has forgiven you. At the confessional, he stood before you like a creditor before a debtor and tore up the debt with divine mercy. He knew suffering well, its weight, its darkness, but he also knew it was never the end. Our suffering is brief, he told many, but our reward is eternal. Even when the soul felt buried beneath storms of despair, he urged calmness. Stay steady. Even when the sea roars, your boat will not sink. Jesus is with you. He often asked for prayers for his ministry, not for fame or admiration, but for the strength to do God's will. I fear displeasing the Lord, he wrote. In the way I carry out my priesthood, may everything serve his glory. He offered hope through poetic, soul-stirring imagery. In heaven, he said, there will be no winter, only spring and beauty, autumn and joy, summer and love. Earth, on the other hand, was a place where winter was needed, a season of trials meant to teach us patience, self-denial, and the quieter virtues that only bloom in hardship. He reassured those who suffered long that Jesus in his mercy would never leave them alone. The cross may be heavy, he said, but the Lord who sends it will lift it from time to time. Every word Padre Pio spoke came from experience, shaped by his own wounds, trials, and mystical union with God. His teachings were never lofty or cold. They were warm, human, filled with both truth and tenderness. He didn't just teach people how to live. He helped them understand why they suffer, how to love, and most importantly, how to hold on to Christ, even when everything else falls away. But what do you think drove a humble monk to embrace pain, mystery, and miracles with unwavering faith for over 50 years? We'd like to hear your thoughts. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.